I'm Victoria. I'm Vanessa. Yeah, it's okay if you can't tell us apart. I guess we would call it Twingineering. Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome
Welcome
back.
back. Okay,
We'll see how that started. To our 24th episode of Twingineering. If you're new here, we created this podcast to be a resource for Latinas and other first generation minorities in engineering by providing advice, any knowledge that we have, personal testimonies, and having other guests on our podcast. So thank you for listening if you've already listened to the podcast before. But today we have a special guest. Jamie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, so my name is Jamee Bates. I'm currently a civil engineering slash environmental major at Cal Poly Pomona. I'm in my bachelor's degree, and this is my last semester actually, so it's very exciting. Yay. I'm from a city called Whittier. It's like 30-40 minutes away from LA. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us. We're excited to have, someone still in school on our podcast. Good luck on all of your finals. Excited that this is your
Thank you.
last semester. You're almost there.
Thank you.
So before we get into the topic of the podcast, we're gonna go start off a little bit more conversational and talk about our weekly highs and lows and maybe something new that we tried this week. So we'll start off with the lows so we can bring it up after. Vanessa, do you want to start?
Let's see, what's my low? Well, one thing is that it's getting really cold here in Ohio, and the other day it got to it said like low 20, but then there was like wind, and then it was like feels like 7. And I was like, oh. So then I was like, that's crazy because my trash can is out on the curb and I have to go get it. So then like I put on some gloves and like a sweater and a jacket, and I was like came back and I was like defrosting. I was like, bro, there's no way I live here. Anyways,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
just surviving the cold.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Milo isn't that bad compared to yours. I just had to get an oil change yesterday, and I hate going. I know it has to be done, but I just always get super anxious. Like when I go, I'm like, I have to go talk to this like man at this dealership, and like he's gonna tell me I have to pay, which is fine. But then he's gonna tell me all this other stuff, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. That's okay. Let's just not do that today. I don't know what that means. Um, yeah, but we did it, and it was only an oil change, so we're good. Jamie.
I think my low is also not as bad as going out in feels like 7 degrees weather. That's great. I feel like 40 kills me. So I props to you. I feel like you're strong.
I'm independent women in years.
No, I think my low for the week is that the center console, like in the middle of the driver's seat and the passenger seat, broke. And it broke like while I was getting gas. So what I usually do is I get gas. I know. And I took what I do when I get gas is that I get like my card out and then I put my wallet in the center console. So it's like I don't know, hidden. Like I don't know what the logic is, but I just like hide it in there. And then so I go and get my gas, and then I get back in my car to put my card back into my wallet, like get my wallet. I try to open it, and it would not open. So my car just had my wallet stuck in it for like 2 days. So yeah, that's it. That's my low. Because I was like, and my mom was like, "How can you go buy me this?" I'm like, yeah, Dad, can you break open my break open my center console?" So that's my low, is that my wallet was stuck in my car for 48 hours.
That's crazy. I feel like that maybe is comparable to walking in 7 degrees snow.
I think so because I'm like my ID's in there, you know?
No, literally.
At least your license was in there. You're like Like if you got pulled over, you're like, well, it's in there.
It's in the car with
It's
me.
it's here with me.
I promise it's here with me. Like we could break it, but I don't
My
know.
car just ate it.
My car did eat it. And I texted my mom too. She was like, "Can you like go get this for me?" Um, and I was like, "Well, my wallet's stuck in my car." And she was like, all she responded was "stuck?" question mark. She's like, "What does that mean?" But yeah, that's
Like you're like, I can though if they take Apple Pay.
I know. I'm like, I just with my car. Um, yeah.
Oh, well,
Well,
yeah.
glad all these situations are over. We can move on to the highs, bring up the energy a little bit. Vanessa, do you want to start or do you want me to go? Okay. So I couldn't hear what you said, but I like saw you mouth it. Okay. So I would go first. I guess my high was that I recently got a raise. I think it was like a week ago or something. It wasn't like this week, but that would be my high because I was like a little nervous about it. I mean, I've gotten one before, but still, talking about money, I'm like, but yeah.
It's real.
Yeah.
So hopefully by my birthday, I will, well, I guess not by my birthday, but like that paycheck, I will see it.
Nice.
Yeah, Vanessa.
Okay. You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
I don't know what the problem is. Um, okay, so what was I gonna say? Oh, when we were in Arizona, we tried that coffee shop. And that was the first time I tried a banana cream latte. And it was just like so good that it like fed my soul, you know what I mean? Like when you try like the first sip of coffee and you're like, this just hits different. And then like you're gonna miss it. Yeah, it was good. Maybe I'm just addicted to coffee, but
Yeah,
yeah,
if you're ever in Phoenix, was it in Phoenix?
I think so. Yes.
Arizona. It's this place called Goji Berry. Everything is plant-based, and it
Oh,
was really good actually.
It was very good. 10 or 10.
Okay, is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Jamie. I wasn't sure if you were done. Sorry. I should have asked if you were done, not if that was it.
um, my high of the week, I'll say that it was we at my job at my current internship, we had like a kind of chili cook-off potluck like white elephant event, and the white elephant was so fun, and the gift that I walked away with was a hot Cheetos Snuggie. So like it's like the blanket with sleeves in it, and then as soon as I got it, I just wore it at my desk for the rest of the day, and like people would walk by, they're like, "You put it on?" I'm like, "Yes." So it's like huge too. Like in real life, I'm 4'11", so the blanket's like 3 feet past my height.
Like a little
They're like, "Oh,
ghost
Jamie, can you?"
walking.
Yeah. They're like, "Can you come by?" Like, "Oh, can you come to my desk?" Like, I either have to take it off or like pick it up like a gown and like. So I'll call that like my small high of the week because my hot Cheeto blanket.
That's funny.
That's amazing.
We actually have Christmas tree costumes. I don't know why that reminded me of it, but Vanessa and I bought some like 2 Christmases ago.
Oh my God.
Um, now I'm like, maybe I should put it on this year. Anyways.
You should wear it in like your next podcast or
Oh
something.
yeah.
Ah,
We should have worn it today.
I know.
Um, so we can go into something we learned in our current role or just like in general or something new that we tried. Do we have an idea or we can move on? Okay, Vanessa, you can go.
Yeah, so like a few weeks ago, I was up, I don't know, geography, sorry. I was in Columbus, and I went over there because I was like gonna get a hair trim, and I tried this bagel shop that I saw on TikTok, and I was like, wow, like it hit so good. I don't know. I think it's just anyways, I would go back to that bagel shop. But yeah, that's where I tried a bagel.
Yeah, everything just speaks to your soul.
It does. It's the flavors, I think. The flavors just they fuse with my blood, I think.
I think for me, I mean, I guess we tried the new coffee shop, but I was gonna say like I recently did this like EMI EMC seminar and like the company paid for it. It was mostly just about like mitigation and like what to look for, like PCB design for like radiation and stuff, like how to minimize that. Which was pretty cool. It was like a whole day though. So it was like segments and each one was like an hour and a half. So it felt kind of long, but like it was good. I took notes. So I guess that's something new that I learned.
Nice.
Um, do you have anything to share?
I don't have anything new because this is my last week before of lectures before finals week. So I've just been doing school like it's all been the same and also intense. So like that's
Yeah, no worries. We're good. Okay, so we'll move on to the theme of today's episode, um, which is technically Jamie, because Jamie can talk about whatever she wants to talk about. So we'll go into what we were kind of thinking. Since Jamie is a student, we wanted to talk a little bit about like student perspectives. Um, I know Jamie, you mentioned um something leaning towards like embracing your own path and avoiding comparison to others, and I know that's like super relevant like in school. Um, so do you want to talk about that a little bit?
as I mentioned before, my major is civil engineering with an emphasis in environmental, and I started fall semester of 2019. And when I started, I met with an advisor, and the projected time for me to graduate was 4.5 years to get through the civil engineering program. And this is my like 5.5 year mark. So it's obviously taken longer than I originally thought it was going to take. And I know that that's actually not bad at all, but it's hard for me sometimes to not compare myself to other students or other people in their professional or academic careers and not compare myself, I guess, like length in time wise for this specific area of my life. So sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm so behind. I took way longer in my program, but there's people who have taken shorter in their program and they don't and they think that they're behind, or there's people that have taken way longer than me but I wouldn't call them behind on their path. So I'm trying to get rid of telling myself, oh, you're so behind on your path, you're so behind on your path, because I feel like saying that I'm behind implies that we're all on the same path when obviously that's not true.
Right.
um and yeah, I feel like I'm trying to tell myself that I'm where I am supposed to be. And if I was supposed to be somewhere else, then I would be there. So yeah, and I look back on my experiences too, and I wouldn't trade it anyway. So I feel like these are some things that help me like help ground myself when I start spiraling. Like I'm like, oh my God, I'm so behind. Like, what am I doing? I should have done this by now. I should have done this by now. I should have had this many internships. I should have had this experience already. But um, I look back at all the time that I've taken and I wouldn't trade the experiences that I've had. Like, what if I wouldn't have met these people if I graduated earlier, or if I did or didn't take this internship? Would I have had this experience? Would I have learned that skill? Like, for example, Victoria, I met you at the Injiniera conference,
Oh, yeah.
and I went as a student, and maybe me and Nancy, we don't like, maybe I wouldn't have attended if I wasn't still in school or something like that. So I don't know. It's just a small um, example of I think people call it like the butterfly effect or like the burnt toast effect. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, every small thing that happens to you, it's like a ripple effect of
Yeah.
all these different experiences that I feel blessed to have. So I try to remind myself that when I kind of get in the mindset of, oh, you're behind. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's like super important. Like, I think, and it's also hard though, like you're like, yeah, I'm on my own path, like, um, and I think we've mentioned this before on like a previous podcast that we're not all in the same boat. Like, so like you aren't like anybody else. So it's not a like it's not a good idea to compare yourself, but you do it all the time anyways. And like trying to like keep yourself grounded and like tell yourself like this is my own path. And I think with like me and Vanessa, because sometimes we would take the same classes and then like one of us would do really well and then like the other person would like do terrible and we're like, uh, okay, don't compare ourselves. Like, you know, and so
Yeah.
like there's like that. Um, but I think it's really good that you like bring that up because I think it's like really important and we have to keep reminding ourselves, even though it's something that's difficult to do. Like as much as you want to say that you're embracing your path and like you try really hard to, there's still always like those negative thoughts that come up. I mean, the more you practice, you know, the better you'll be at actually embracing your path. But yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and like even in school, like you see like even in like on a test or like an assignment, you like see someone else who like does better, but then it's like, okay, well, we had different like educations like up until this point, or we had, maybe someone had a tutor, or maybe someone took a programming class where this is my
Mm.
first one. And I think like we only compare ourselves like at this point in time, which is like bad because like everything before then, like we don't know what got everyone up until this point. And even like outside of school, like not even in school, but like outside, you like, compare your life to other people, and it's like, why? Like you do it because but like deep down, you're like, okay, well, it's not comparable like at all, but you're still comparing it. But yeah, I agree. It's like good to bring up that um all you can do is try to remind yourself that you are on your own path, and um like you said, like you are where you're supposed to be. um but yeah, I agree, it is hard. It's even like at work, I'm like, oh my God, like how does this person know this? And it's like, well, they've been there for like 20 years, so like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I think like because you mentioned that you're in your like 5.5 year. And I think that's also something that a lot of people like for some reason like look down on, like taking more than 4 years to finish a degree. But I think like even if it like could take someone like a shorter amount and they could finish, but at the same time, like they could also have learned nothing. Like just trying to like get through it and like finish versus like actually learning and like understanding what they went there to study. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up. But you're doing great.
Thanks. No, yeah. And that's kind of like I've heard people talk about their experiences, and I feel like that kind of gets me out of it too, because I've known people who've taken longer and I wouldn't call them behind. And I know that they're working hard
Right.
and know they're taking their time to understand the basics and the fundamentals in all their courses. So why should I would never view someone else's path that way. I would never say that to someone else. So why should I be so mean to myself and say like
Right.
every day I'm like, "Oh, you're behind. Like you should have done this already." But I know there's good that has come from how like the time that I've taken. In my 5.5 years, I was able to do like a handful of internships, and maybe I wouldn't have gotten that many summers if I had taken a shorter taken a shorter program path.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then Victoria, it's I feel like I kind of relate to what you said because my sister's also a civil engineering major.
Mm.
So we've also taken classes together because we go to the same school. And so sometimes like I would do better or like she would do better or like an example of like she'd be like, "Oh, like how come your grade is like a little higher? Like I swore we did the same thing. Like I swore we studied the same thing." But then I would always tell her like that doesn't matter. You tried your best and you still did good. Like there's no use in comparing yourself to me. So I should apply that same kind of grace to myself, I feel. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then like, I don't know. It was just, I mean, like thinking back now, like it's kind of funny. We're like, like stressing out because we're like, well, like, what if I fail and you don't? Like, how are we gonna get through this? Like, like we both have to make it through. But like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
I think grace is what we needed to give ourselves.
Yeah.
I remember we also had a group chat with our friends. This was like in the back of my head. But it was like us and we were all electrical engineering and we were all taking the same class and we're like, okay, we're not gonna say our grades. We're just gonna say if we did good or we did bad. And like, how are we gonna go about this, you know?
Yeah.
Because we're like, we don't want to like compare like ourselves to each other because we also had different paths, but we're like, but we want to know like, are you good, girl, or like,
Yeah.
do we need to support this one? You know what I mean? So, but yeah, so that was like our way of trying not to compare ourselves, but still help each other.
Yeah, that's crazy. I kind of forgot. Like even in person, we're like one of our friends would come up, or like we would go to our friends and we'd be like, "Oh, I just got out of an exam," and they're like, or like, "I found out my grade," and we'd be like, "How'd you do?" And then like our friends would be like, or like, just like thumbs down. We're like, "Okay, you still did great. Like at least you made it out." But yeah, that's funny. Um. Jamie, do you want like to bring up anything else on I guess like embracing your own path or like avoiding comparison? Um we do
Um,
have like a couple questions we could probably ask you about like your school experience, but feel free to add on and like keep going if you want to.
I think I'll just add that I don't, I feel like this journey of not comparing myself to other people and really loving and embracing my own path is not like a one-time change my mindset, like move on type of thing. Like I feel like it will continue to be a daily reminder that I have to give myself and act on all the time. And I think what would be helpful for that for me is to verbalize and say things out loud and be like, you're good, like you're trying your best, like this is where you have to be. And I think having a good support system, like a good handful of people that I can talk to about that and reassure me that I mean this is where I'm supposed to be, that I'm trying my best. So yeah, I know that it'll be a constant thing, but I'm happy to go on that journey if it means that I stop being so mean to myself.
Yeah, yeah. That's really good advice. Honestly, I think we all like are super hard on ourselves. I mean, I know I am even now, so this is a
More
good
grace.
conversation to have. Yeah, more grace.
That's our goal, guys, for 2025.
That'll be
Yeah.
the title of this podcast. More grace.
More grace.
Um, I guess Jamie, we wanted to ask like if you have noticed any difference in like the classroom in regards to the amount or like the population of women or minorities in engineering. Like I know like a while ago, obviously there weren't as many. I think for us, I feel like obviously in like the what is the word? Like lower division classes, we'd see a lot more because all the majors are mixed. But then going into like higher division courses, more like major specific, there was a lot less. So I guess we just wanted to ask you and like if you've seen any difference.
So yeah, in my personal experience, I think I've noticed the same thing. Like when it was like the lower division, like GE type classes, there was like a good mix of like men and women in the class. But once it started getting major specific, I would say that there's a pretty small proportion of women in my classes. I think when it started getting into my environmental emphasis specific classes, there was a little bit of a higher percentage of women, still more guys in the class than girls, but um like civil general versus civil environmental, I think there was more girls in the classes. I don't know why. I'm like trying to think why, but yeah, I've noticed that there's a little bit more women in my environmental classes, but still in the class in general, majority men.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, I think I mean I guess we kind of shared our experience, but Sometimes like I would be like the only one in my lab or like me and my other friend. So I was like, anyways, just wondering if it was any different. Vanessa,
Yeah.
do you have anything else to add or ask?
No, I think that you both pretty much covered it.
I guess one thing I did want to ask, like, since you go to Pomona, like, if you have any like resources that have helped you or like organizations, just so like we can share it, for anyone who's listening who may be also attending Pomona or like thinking about attending and like ways to help them out.
Yeah, so for anyone who is attending Pomona or is thinking of attending Cal Poly Pomona, I think in terms of academic resources, some things that really helped me, this is more like a practice than a resource, but like talking to my professors and really taking advantage of the office hours because I mean, obviously I would go to them when I was confused on a topic or needed help with my homework, but even outside of that, when I was struggling outside of school, um, they would work things out with me because obviously what my personal struggles was kind of interfering with my academic performance. So a lot of my professors were willing to work something out with me and, help me out, give me a little bit more of a hand. So I think that's a really good practice. I think people don't, in my experience, from what I've heard, don't take advantage of office hours as much as I think they should. I think they're great. I have a lot of respect for professors. I think they're awesome. And for other types of support, like non-academic support, we have a lot of cultural centers at Cal Poly Pomona. So we have like a women's resource center. We have a different like ethnic group center. And so I think totally look into those. Like their doors are open every day for a certain amount of hours, but it's great. Like they're always popping. They have a lot of people in like those cultural centers. So I think totally take advantage of those as well. And then we also, I think a lot of people don't know about this, or I don't know, I'm not sure, but we have something called Poly Pantry, and it's free. Like you can get like pantry groceries. You can do it once a week, and if you're a student, it's totally free for you. So if anyone needs that kind of support too, I feel like that's good.
Yeah, those are all good resources to share. I think Davis also had like a pantry, something similar. Um, gosh, I was gonna say something else. Oh, we also had a cultural center. So just to like add that. But yeah, Vanessa, do you have any other questions? Or we can move on to the submitted questions.
No, I just wanted to add that I agree about like the office hours. I know
Oh,
it took Victoria and I like 2 years to get into office hours because it was pretty intimidating. But like once you're there, like you get to ask the questions, and then it's like, okay, well, now I'm not so confused. So that actually did help. But yeah,
yeah.
encouraging people to go to those.
Yeah, sometimes they like actually really help you. Like they'll work the whole problem with you. You get the right answer, and then you get 100%. Like they'll work through the whole thing. Like, and if you're the only one there, you could just finish your homework there and then complete
Yeah.
100%. Like
Yeah.
it's yeah. Um, it's worth it. Like the little anxiety going into it, like it's worth it in the end. Because you know you'll do great on that assignment. Um, so we can move into the submitted questions. Unless Jamie, you have anything to add. We can also talk about this later. Um, so the first question is, what resources are you using to practice Spanish slash Tagalog?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. Um, so for Spanish, I actually took 4 years of Spanish in high school, but I also kind of feel like everyone did. So I took 4 years of Spanish in high school, and then I took the AP class, passed the AP test, but I don't like to like when you pass the AP test, I think they let you call yourself bilingual, but I'm like, I'm not calling myself bilingual. You're crazy. So I'm not, I don't do that. And then I took two additional classes in college and they were called beginner classes, but I think college was like big and scary for me. So I'm like, oh, I'll just like their beginner probably means like AP times 10. So I'll just take the beginner classes, but they were kind of just review of what I already took in um high school. So right now, what I'm doing to practice Spanish is, I mean, I do like kind of use Duolingo. That sounds so funny. Okay, guys, I do use Duolingo, but I don't learn anything new on it. I think it just helps me refresh like
Oh
vocab
yeah.
of like what I already learned in high school and college. So the real way that I practice is that my partner, he speaks Spanish. Um, he sometimes will like we'll have a phone call and he'll ask me about my day, but then like on a random time, like it's not scheduled. He'll just be like, "Oh, tell me about your day, but you have to say the entire thing in Spanish." And I'll be like, "Oh my
Mm.
God, no, like don't make me do it." I'm like, "Don't make me do it." And he's like, "Como?" I'm like, "Oh my God." Like he'll pretend he doesn't understand English. I'll be like,
Like
"Oh, okay, okay."
you're
Shout out Juan. Love
you're
you.
like, I think that's the end
Um,
of the call then.
yeah, I'm like, oh my God. But yeah. And then I'll just that it's like a long, it's like the longest description of my day ever because I'm like, I just keep I just keep pausing and he'll be like, just say it. And if it's wrong, I'll tell you. And I'm like, what you wrong? Yeah. But yeah, that's what I'm doing for Spanish right now. Um and for Tagalog, so I'm Filipino and I'm the first one from my family to be born in the US. So I'm like kind of sad that my Tagalog is already kind of broken. Like I tell people I have like a 10-year-old level of Tagalog because up until 10 is when my grandpa would babysit me and he
Mm.
mostly speaks Tagalog. Um, so for Tagalog, I asked my parents to try to speak to me in Tagalog more. I understand it well and I speak it kind of broken. Also, the way that the Philippines is that regional, like across the whole nation, everyone speaks Tagalog, but regionally there's different dialects and sometimes they're so different that they sound like different languages. So the dialect of my family is Bisaya, so I hear Bisaya a lot at home. But it's weird because I can't respond. I don't know why, but I understand Bisaya really well, but I can't respond. Um,
Yeah.
so my mom speaks to me in Bisaya, and my dad speaks to me in English. So I'm trying to convince him to speak to me in Tagalog. I'm like, what? Please. I was like, please. So that's what I'm doing. But for both of those languages, I plan on when I finish my undergrad, which is like in 2 weeks. Um, I plan on enrolling in classes for both of those just
Hmm.
to have a more structured way of learning. I'm going to enroll like at some local community college for both Spanish and Tagalog, so I
Nice.
could get my speaking up. So
Nice. Yeah. I recently, like, because I started interning for like this other organization and I do like event planning and stuff, but part of like that internship was like doing outreach and it's here like in the San Fernando Valley, so there's a lot of Spanish speakers and I like have had to um speak a lot more Spanish now than like I did in college. So like I remember the first time I had to like tell people about our resources. I was like it went so bad and this lady is probably like, what in the world are you trying to say? But I feel like she knows trying. And then after that, I was like, all right, get it together. Like, don't get nervous. You know the language. Um, but yeah, just thought I'd share that. The next question is if you were able to talk to your freshman yourself, what advice would you give them?
okay, that's a good one too. I have to think. Um, I think I would tell her just to not be so scared all the time. Like she was so scared. I mean, I'm still like a good amount of scared, but she was like crazy. Like I think I think I was just so scared and like I said it's normal to be a little scared, a little bit nervous, have a little bit anxiety about new experiences, but I think she was so scared that um she would let it like keep her from
Mm.
having new experiences and like, oh, I don't want to go to that club event because what would I even do, like what would I do with my hands, like what would I say. I'm like, oh my gosh, like relax. So so it's just stuff like that. I think I would tell her to just be less scared of like of course in the future you'll never know what's going to happen. You are never going to know what's going to happen, so just instead of being scared of that, be excited for that instead, I think.
Yeah, that's good advice. The next question is, what was your favorite engineering class?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. Um, my favorite class was hands down water and wastewater engineering lab and lecture. I think it was my first class in my environmental emphasis curriculum. And I love that class so much. I credit that class and that professor, Dr. Palomo. Shout out Dr. Palomo. I love her. Um, I credit that class and her for sparking my interest in water. Like that's what I want to do now in my career, to do water on the civil side. Um, yeah, I really loved it. It was about water treatment, and I mean, I won't go into details. No, it was about water treatment, and the lab was super cool too. It was like a chemical lab, and you like look for different bacteria and stuff like that. And she also organized field trips, so we got to visit drinking water plants and wastewater plants. So I really love that class. And I went on to take another water class with her and my water design senior project with her too. So
Oh, wow. That's
yeah,
cool. Yeah, I don't really know much about water,
it's okay.
but like you can go into the lecture another time. Wait, what did you say, Vanessa?
I
It was
said,
like I
I
talked
said
about.
other than that, I consume it.
Oh, water is good.
Yeah, it's good.
Um, the next one is, did you ever deal with imposter syndrome? If so, what were ways you overcame it slash advice?
Yeah, so I would say that I have experienced imposter syndrome, and I would say that I felt it most during my internships.
Mhm.
So I've had a couple internships. I had like three internships, but within the same company, so they're not too different, but they did treat them as separate internships. So when I had my first internship with them, um, I mean, I was just a little baby engineering student, and I did not know anything. Like I think I learned about like rebar, which is so common in engineering, in civil engineering. And I learned about rebar like during the internship. Like they were like, "Oh, look at the rebar." I'm like, "I don't know what that is." Um, they had to
Like
explain that
what?
to me. Yeah, I was like, what? They're like, "Aren't you a civil student?" I'm like, "Don't look at me." But yeah, I had when I got that internship in the first place, I'm like, wow, they're really taking a chance on me because my resume that I handed in did not have any prior work experience. Like it just had that I was in school and that I used to deliver food for Uber Eats. So like that's all that it had. Um, so yeah, and then after that internship, that same company invited me back to work part-time at school and then invited me back to work um again to intern again the next summer and then the summer after that. So they invited me back a total of I think like three or four times. And each time that they invited me back, I would be like, oh my God, I fooled them. Like I tricked them into thinking that I'm a good intern or that I would make a good engineer. Um, and I would be like, I have no skills. Like, oh, I've spent like 3 months at my first internship, like 3 months at my second internship, and I haven't learned anything. Like, I don't bring anything to the table. And like, eventually they're gonna find out that I've just been doing nothing for months. Um, which is not true. Like I did learn a lot in that internship. So I feel like it's like kind of funny to joke about, but then sometimes it would kind of get a little bit too much and I would convince myself that I am a fraud and I learned absolutely nothing and um they're gonna find out and I'm gonna put all these internships on my resume. And when I go apply for a full time, they're gonna be like, oh, she knows so much about engineering, and then they're gonna hire me full time. I'm gonna trick everyone. I'm gonna convince everyone that I know all this stuff, but I don't know all this stuff, and they're gonna find out one day. Um, so yeah, I mean, it does suck to have that feeling and kind of question my own credibility. Um, I think what helps to ground me is kind of similar to what I said earlier, is to step back and look at what I knew going into that first internship in 2022 versus now. Like I'm finishing my undergrad, it's the end of 2024. Like I do know a lot more and I have had a lot more experiences and I try to ground myself in that I am not the same person as I was then. Like I have learned both like industry related information and just within myself as well. And I think talking to other people helps to ground me as well because I think if I just keep it in my head, I just like I'm talking at myself and it can kind of get into a negative spiral. And I talk to other people, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, didn't you do this? Like, didn't you do this inspection? Didn't you learn about that? Didn't you give this presentation? Like, tell me that you could have done that in 2022 versus 2024. Like, you obviously have learned something. So I think talking to people kind of helps ground me.
Yeah, I think like it isn't until I start telling people like what I do that they're like, "Oh wow, like that's so crazy. Like that sounds so fun." And like I didn't even think about like that and like that things have to go through those tests. And then I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess yeah, now I know like I've learned all of these tests and like the process and like the different parts or equipment that goes into it and like I've gone to seminars and like all this stuff." But I totally feel you. I'm always like what do I even do? Like write reports. I'm basically an English major. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, but then I don't take into account like all of the other like actual engineering stuff that I do. Um, but I've definitely like the same things that like you told yourself, I've definitely told myself that too. Um, so yeah, I feel you.
I think taking that step back is like
Mhm.
definitely the one thing that like makes an impact. Like, obviously from like my first year to my last year in college, like brain is not the same, or like my first day on the job, whereas like even like 2 weeks in or like a year in, like you feel like you didn't do something or anything, but then you take a step back and you're like, oh wait, I actually did do stuff. Um, and then like another thing that like helps me is also knowing that like we're always learning and that, you know, obviously day one you feel like you know nothing. But then like even on day 10 or day 100, like you're not gonna know everything you need to know about that role. Um, and so just being open to learning and like I mean I know there's always like that comparison thing where you're always telling yourself like oh I should know this but like no you shouldn't, you know what I mean? But yeah, more grace.
More grace.
Yeah, like even like other people at my job, like who have like different positions, like even if they also have the test engineer title, we have two like very totally different jobs. And then like they couldn't do what I do, and like I couldn't do what they do. At least like in that day, like obviously you can learn, but um, so yeah, just like looking at that and not comparing yourself. More grace, yeah.
More grace.
So this last one is not a question. It literally says not a question, but I'll
Okay.
just read it.
Okay.
Not a question, but hi, Jamie. Te quiero. I'm so happy you did this. Nancy.
Aw. I love you, Nancy. Aw, that's so cute. Oh my gosh. Shout out Nancy. Love you. Yeah, that's so sweet. I mean, you obviously like you met Nancy and Nancy
Yeah.
has been friends since middle school actually. And
Oh, wow.
we've been friends since middle school. We went to different universities. She went to Cal State Fullerton. But she also majored in civil, so we've kind of gotten like it's cool that we've gotten to bond on that too, like not just what our friendship was previously. Like we talk about civil stuff now, we sound like idiots sometimes, but like it's funny. It's so funny. We just talk about this dumbest stuff. It's like, why are we talking about this outside of work hours? Like we're just, why are we
Yeah.
but no, yeah, it's good. Oh, shout out Nancy. That's cute.
That's funny. Yeah. So that was the last, I guess, question or comment submitted. Well, thank you all for listening up to this point if you did. Um this episode will be released sometime next week in a week from filming. Don't forget to visit our website. Follow us on social media. We have an Instagram and a TikTok. And our episodes are usually posted onto YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Um, Once again, thank you, Jamie, for joining us today, for taking the time. We absolutely appreciate you and your knowledge and everything that you had to share today.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.